Rashid had been working as a security guard for almost 5 years. He had guarded malls, warehouses, even a few government offices. But the job that always unsettled him the most was watching over an abandoned textile factory on the edge of town. It was a sprawling, half-decayed building, shut down years ago due to financial collapse. Rumors swirled among the staff that a worker had died in a gruesome accident there, and some said the factory was cursed. Rashid never believed in such tales, at least not until his first night shift in the surveillance room. The factory had one small guard room fitted with 6 old CCTV monitors. The screens flickered constantly, their black and white images buzzing with static. Most of the cameras were installed in the long corridors, stairwells, and storage halls. Rashid sat alone, sipping his tea, trying to shake off the eerie silence that pressed in from all sides. The only sound was the constant hum of the monitors. Around midnight, when the town outside grew completely still, Rashid noticed something unusual. One of the cameras, camera 4, which faced the second-floor hallway, flickered more than usual. At first, he thought it was just a technical glitch. But then, through the snowy static, a dark shadow appeared. It wasn't the kind of blur that came from faulty wiring. This was different. It looked like a tall figure, standing at the very end of the hallway, completely still. Rashid leaned closer to the monitor, narrowing his eyes. The figure had no distinct features, no face, just a human-shaped silhouette, darker than the shadows around it. He rubbed his eyes, blinked, and even tapped the side of the monitor, but the figure remained. Uneasy, Rashid picked up his flashlight and walked out of the guard room. The factory's air smelled of rust, dust, and dampness as he climbed the creaking stairs to the second floor. His boots echoed loudly, each step reminding him just how empty the place was supposed to be. When he reached the hallway, he aimed his flashlight down its length. Nothing. Just peeling walls, broken windows, and silence. Convinced it had been his imagination, Rashid went back downstairs. But when he sat down, his blood ran cold. The monitor now showed the same shadow, only closer, halfway down the corridor. He felt his heartbeat hammer in his chest. This time he didn't leave the guard room. Instead, he stared at the screen, watching. The figure didn't move in a normal way. It didn't walk or stride. Instead, it seemed to flicker forward, like a glitch in a video, jumping closer each time the static buzzed across the screen. Within minutes, it was at the very end of the hallway, just inches from the camera lens. Rashid leaned back in horror, his hand trembling as he tried to adjust the dial on the monitor. For a moment, the screen went completely black. When the picture came back, his stomach dropped. The figure was gone. Or so he thought. Rashid turned his head slowly, almost against his will, toward the small window in the guardroom door. His breath caught in his throat. A dark silhouette was standing right there, outside the door, watching him through the dusty glass. For a moment, neither of them moved. Rashid's hand reached instinctively for the door handle, but before he could even blink, the figure vanished. He rushed outside, his flashlight cutting through the dark. No one was there. Panting heavily, he stumbled back into the room, trying to convince himself that stress and sleep deprivation were playing tricks on his mind. Yet when he turned toward the monitors again, his worst fear was confirmed. On every single screen, the figure was now visible, lurking in different parts of the factory, closer and closer, as though surrounding the building. Rashid abandoned his post that night, leaving his uniform cap behind as he fled into the night air. The next morning, when he returned with the supervisor and other guards, they reviewed the CCTV footage. But the recordings showed nothing out of the ordinary. No shadow, no figure, nothing. No one believed him. But Rashid knew what he had seen. And from that night onward, he refused to ever work another shift at the factory. Imran had worked security at many places, but when he was assigned to an abandoned hospital on the outskirts of the city, he immediately felt uneasy. The hospital had been closed for over a decade after a fire destroyed parts of its upper floors. Still, some investors wanted to renovate it, and until that happened, guards like Imran were paid to patrol the premises and keep intruders away. The building loomed like a corpse of concrete and steel. Its broken windows looked like empty eye sockets, and its corridors seemed to swallow all sound. On his first night there, Imran's flashlight beam seemed to barely cut through the thick darkness. His radio crackled occasionally, but no one else was stationed inside. He was the only guard assigned. At 2 a.m., as he made his rounds on the second floor, Imran began to feel something strange. The air suddenly turned icy cold, much colder than it should have been. His breath became visible in the beam of his flashlight. A hospital corridor stretched ahead, long and narrow, lined with rusted stretchers and broken wheelchairs. The silence was oppressive. Then, faintly, he heard it. Footsteps. They weren't his own. These footsteps echoed from somewhere ahead, slow and deliberate, as if someone was walking barefoot on the cracked tiles. Imran stopped, his heart pounding, and aimed his flashlight down the hall. The beam shook in his trembling hand, revealing only dust and broken glass. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice echoing unnaturally in the silence. No response. The footsteps stopped. Cautiously, Imran continued down the corridor, his boots crunching on debris. He reached a set of double doors that had once led into an operating theater. The paint was peeling, and a faded sign that read, "Surgery Ward," hung crookedly. He pushed the doors open, the hinges screaming like something alive. Inside, the room was empty, except for a single metal gurney lying on its side. But when his flashlight swept across the cracked tiles, Imran froze. Bloody footprints, bare footprints, trailed across the floor and disappeared into the far wall. His mouth went dry. There was no way anyone could have entered or left without him noticing. Still, he forced himself to follow the trail. The footprints stopped right at the wall, as if the person had simply vanished into solid concrete. That was when he heard it. A whisper. It came from directly behind him. Spinning around, Imran nearly dropped his flashlight. In the corner of the room stood a figure in a tattered hospital gown, its head tilted unnaturally to one side. The face was pale, the eyes black and hollow, staring directly at him. Imran stumbled backward, his breath ragged, and aimed the light straight at the figure. For a moment, the beam cut right through it. The figure flickered, becoming translucent like smoke. Then, as if mocking him, it stepped forward. "Leave!" The whisper came, drawn out and distorted. Imran bolted from the operating room, his boots slamming against the tiles. He didn't care about protocol, didn't care about the paycheck. All he wanted was to get out. But the hospital wasn't done with him yet. As he ran down the corridor, every light above him flickered violently. His radio hissed with static, blasting fragments of words that made no sense. Behind him, he could hear the rapid patter of bare feet chasing him, faster and faster. He reached the stairwell, nearly tumbling down in his panic. When he looked up the stairs, his heart almost stopped. Dozens of shadowy figures were standing on the landings above, watching him silently, their heads cocked at unnatural angles. Their silhouettes filled the stairwell like patients who had never left. Imran didn't wait another second. He dashed to the ground floor, sprinted across the reception hall, and shoved the main doors open. Cold night air hit him like salvation. He didn't stop running until he was well beyond the hospital gates. The next morning, when his supervisor demanded an explanation for why he had abandoned his shift, Imran simply handed over his badge. He refused to set foot in that place again. Later, an older guard pulled him aside and whispered, You're lucky you left when you did. They say the patients who died in that fire never moved on. Some guards hear them crying in the wards. Others see them walking the halls. Those who stay too long. The man paused, his eyes darkening. Don't come back the same. From that night onward, Imran never doubted the existence of things that lived beyond reason. He would always carry with him the memory of the hollow-eyed patients, silently watching, waiting, in the endless corridors of that ruined hospital. Kamran had always believed night shifts were the easiest, quiet hours, fewer people, and good pay. When he took a job as a security guard at a multi-level parking garage downtown, he thought it would be the same. All he had to do was monitor the area, check cameras, and make rounds every hour. Simple. But Kamran soon learned that the garage had a reputation. Other guards had quit suddenly, refusing to explain why. Drivers occasionally complained of strange things happening, car alarms going off at once, shadows moving between vehicles, and sudden cold spots. Kamran shrugged it off as superstition. After all, concrete structures couldn't be haunted. On his third night, everything changed. It was close to 1:30 a.m. when Kamran started his routine patrol. The garage was nearly empty, only a handful of cars left behind by late-night workers. The fluorescent lights above flickered constantly, buzzing like angry insects. As he walked along the third level, his flashlight beam swept across rows of parked cars. Then he heard it. A faint whisper. At first he thought it was the wind echoing through the structure. But the whisper grew clearer, more human, as if someone was calling his name from between the cars. Kamran. His blood ran cold. He froze, scanning the rows, but there was no one in sight. Gathering his courage, he moved forward, the sound of his own footsteps echoing unnaturally loud. The whisper came again, this time directly behind him. He spun around, but the row was empty. Shaken, he hurried back to the guard room where the CCTV monitors were kept. His hands trembled as he checked the screens. At first, everything seemed normal. Rows of cars, empty stairwells, deserted ramps. But then, on camera 7, he noticed something horrifying. In the far corner of the garage, just beneath one of the flickering lights, stood a figure. Tall, motionless, and completely black, like a shadow with no source. It didn't move. It just stood there, facing the camera. Kamran zoomed in, his breath hitching. The closer the image got, the more unnatural it looked. Its arms were too long, its head slightly tilted. No face, just darkness. Suddenly the monitors glitched. When the picture cleared, the shadow was gone. Before he could process what happened, the garage lights outside the guard room began to flicker rapidly. Car alarms erupted, blaring all at once in a deafening chorus. Kamran grabbed his flashlight and rushed out, determined to prove to himself it was just an electrical fault. On the fourth level, the noise was overwhelming, alarms screaming, echoes bouncing. He shone his light across the cars, trying to spot an intruder. That's when he noticed something that made his stomach churn. Every car windshield was fogged from the inside, as if someone, or something, had been breathing against the glass. He staggered backward, his heart hammering. Then he saw movement. Between two SUVs, a figure darted across, impossibly fast. He swung his flashlight, but caught only emptiness. "Show yourself!" he shouted, though his voice cracked with fear. The answer came in the form of footsteps, rapid, heavy, circling him. They echoed in every direction at once, as if he were surrounded. Kamran's chest tightened, sweat pouring down his face. And then, silence. The lights flickered one last time before plunging the entire garage into darkness. Only his flashlight beam remained. Slowly, he turned it toward the row ahead, and his breath caught in his throat. At the far end stood the shadow figure, taller now, its red glowing eyes fixed on him. Cameron stumbled back, dropping his flashlight. The beam rolled across the floor, casting eerie streaks of light. In that brief, spinning glow, he saw more of them, dozens of shadowy figures standing between the cars, watching him, their eyes glowing faintly. Panicked, he scrambled for the stairwell. As he slammed the door shut behind him, he could hear the pounding of footsteps following, growing louder as if the figures were chasing him down. He raced to the ground floor, lungs burning, and burst out into the night air. He didn't stop running until he was several blocks away, collapsing on the sidewalk, gasping for breath. The next day, Cameron refused to return. He told his supervisor he quit immediately. When asked why, he only muttered, "There are things in that garage that don't belong in this world." Later, he learned from a fellow guard that years ago, several people had died in that garage. Murders, suicides, even a fatal accident where a driver lost control and plummeted from the upper levels. The structure, they whispered, had soaked in that darkness, trapping the spirits inside. Cameron never took another night shift again. For him, every parking garage would forever echo with whispers in the dark.